The following program is for adult audiences only.
This is
Eric and Gord. What if we're right?
Right now. I believe it would be mine.
Are You Ready?
Gotcha.
Find and like us on Facebook.
Oh, no, I was
Follow us
just
on
making
Instagram.
sure Eric and Gord was hearing that too, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the good news is her
how's
voice still
everybody
comes in
doing?
clear, so-
Welcome to What If We're Right. How is everyone? Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, welcome. Glad to have us.
This is, of course, Gord. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I've had better days, but I'm doing all right. How are you, my friend?
I am phenomenal. This is, for our guests, I'm not too sure if they know that this is our season finale. It is also our 205th episode as we say goodbye to season 2. So I thought, in natural, understated, subtle Eric style, I thought we'd go out with a nice, easygoing topic for everyone to just have a few laughs. Joining us.
Nothing says easy going than talking about religion.
And
Nobody
of
gets
course,
triggered by
joining
that.
us today, we have Jeffrey Davis, who doesn't want to involve God in the conversation, but just went through a pretty severe storm and made it out the other side okay. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, here in Nashville, man, I live right where in the actual suburb, one of the hardest hit ones of these nasty tornado that just blew through here.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, glad you made it.
Oh, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
And Cherie, thanks for joining us at the last minute. I really appreciate you getting in touch with us. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, it's really good to be here as I drive down the highway. We're doing RV driving at this point, and it's great to be able to connect and have this kind of conversation.
Oh, definitely. And anyone listening, the phone is open, 604-655-9630. We're also set up to chat live online if you want to text me your questions via Spreaker.com. I'm ready to take them. And I'll give some a little bit of backstory here because I've got a little bit of time. I come from a very Christian family. I'm not... How do I put this politely? There's currently estimated 2.6 to 3.1 billion Christians in the world. That's roughly 1/3 of the world population.
Ooh.
Now, obviously, in the past decade, other religions have made giant steps in North America, and they were met with Trump's Muslim ban, state-mandated Bible teaching in public schools, and laws that now permit students to give faith-based answers in science classes. But Christianity is suffering in North America. Attitudes towards LGBTQ communities are shifting. Diversity is becoming the pillar of a stable community. And just some research I did over the weekend, roughly 80% of people in a survey of, it was only about 5,000 Americans, but 80% said they believe in God. Of them, 56% said they believe in the God described in the Bible.
Whose interpretation of that God?
I'm sorry?
Whose interpretation of the God described in the Bible?
You see, that's where my big question comes in. So let's dive right into it, because my question is, the Bible is supposed to be a perfect and complete guide to living one's life. I would maintain that it's not applicable in modern times. Now, I guess Cherie would be the best one to answer. Do you believe that the Bible is a perfect and complete guide to living one's life in modern times?
Christianity is that there are so many paths that connect to God, and that religion really is something that man has created to make sense of their world and to try to define God, which really is undefinable. We are using
now,
our own.
my contention would be that the Bible itself is supposed to be the Word of God. So aren't you kind of denying, right? If you don't believe in the Bible, then you don't wholeheartedly believe in the Word of God. And that's just my interpretation.
Right, that's your interpretation. And basically what I'm saying is the Bible is a sacred text. It was written by men. It was written at a time where the translations had to be done by hand, by scribes, with tremendous amount of errors written throughout the Bible. I think the Bible basically is a tool to help us live our lives, a tool in looking at our consciousness, but it's not to be taken literally.
And
Well, I say that kind of makes sense because you kind of can't take the Bible literally. There's too many contradictions as it is anyway. So that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, but you have plenty of what I call biblical literalists that do believe that it's literally a step-by-step guide, a word-for-word handbook, yeah, as Eric was saying. And so it's like there's so many different perspectives. Some people do believe it's literally true, which causes a lot of problems, obviously. And some people believe it's more allegorical, and that's within the realm of, or the broad brushstroke. I'm sure Cherie would agree. Christianity is a broad brushstroke, depending on where you are in the U.S., where you are in the world. Ask a Christian what it means to be a Christian in any given city, any given country, anywhere, and if you ask 100 Christians, I would venture to guess you get 100 different answers on what it means to be a Christian.
and
That seems to be very true.
And that is where I kind of take issue with it, because I would think that it's kind of an all for one for all sort of deal, or it doesn't work. How does it work if everyone has their own interpretation of it? How can it be correct, I guess? You can have your own interpretation of math, but at the end of the day, there's only one form of math that's correct. You know what I mean? If at the end of the day, a large percentage of you are going to find out that you're wrong. Because really, when it comes down to it, there's only one way, and it's the Lord's way. Am I wrong about
Well,
that?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. That's the hard thing, right? Is and me as a former religion as a whole, Christianity and the other quote unquote Abrahamic faiths, the three faiths of Abraham, right? The ones that stem from Abraham, which are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Those three faiths, oftentimes people of those faiths and different sects within those faiths do claim to be absolutely right. And that's a huge problem, right? Because if you're going to claim being absolute right, you have to be able to prove that. And there is no proof for that, because you can't point to the Bible or the Quran, because that's the claim, right? The claim can't be the proof. So, yeah, and I want to hear what Cherie has to think about it, because it's so open. Christianity, I can only speak to that because that's the only religion I've been a part of for a large number of years, is so vastly different, person to person, town to town, country to country.
And Cherie, can I just ask really quickly, do you have a degree, or are you...
Yep. Went to
You do-
seminary 3 years. Yep.
Seminary,
I'm a
3
reverend,
years. 'Cause
ordained.
The
Yep.
problem I have with... last month, I became a minister. I've got an ordination certificate. I've got a white collar. I've got the whole 9 yards. At the end of the day, it cost me $120.
You did the online thing, didn't you?
So I tend to question the legitimacy of anything that I can get online for $120 and then pass myself off as not. I in no way mean to discredit you, but there's a very small group of people who would think to question your credentials as opposed to mine. If I show up in the white collar and say I'm a minister, does it not maybe bother you that people can do that and then claim to be legitimate ministers when they're not?
So on a personal level, sure, it does. But I have no control over those folks who decide that's what they want to do. That they want to go online, they want to pay the $150, and they want to have something that says REV. For me, I'm accountable for myself and my flock, right? I mean, mine is about doing as much research academically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, to have as much clarity as possible to assist folks in really having that conversation and that relationship with something greater than themselves. And I don't care if they call it God, Allah, goddess, light, love, energy, principle. It doesn't matter to me. What does matter is, are you connected to something that is greater? And my personal mission is to have these conversations about awakening to possibilities. You know, you talk about mathematics in this very logical, absolute form, and I don't think that having a relationship with anyone, furthermore, something that we call God, can be linear, can be in that logical realm. And I think
doesn't God think so? Doesn't God believe himself to be absolute? And thereby our interpretation really doesn't matter. I'm just going to use pronouns indiscriminately here. I'm going to call God he, if I may, for just the purpose of this part of the conversation. Anyway, he knows what's up, and you're going to be wrong, or maybe you're not. But if you are, and you've missed the point, does that not upset God?
Well, I think that if we give God human characteristics, you know, if we make God a he, if we make God this anthropomorphic being that sits in the clouds on a throne in judgment and controlling everything like Superman or Santa Claus, yeah, then we got issues. Those are issues. But what if our interpretation of what God is and is not is infallible, like we all are?
So what about the difference between, like, say, the Old Testament and the New Testament? Because Old Testament God was a very angry, spiteful, you know, like anybody basically fucks with him, he went out, you know, he cast out his own son, made him ruler of hell just because they had basically a disagreement about how heaven should be run, and he, you know, started his ruling against him. But all of a sudden there's a complete about face with the New Testament about how God is this divine, fully understanding, forgive all sins, you know, as long as you believe in me and accept me in your heart, then you're going to go to heaven. But it's a complete contradictory to what was originally taught out of the Old Testament, which would almost have to be a more truer form of the Word of God, considering it was written before.
Well, you could say yes, you could also say no. And what if there's an evolution of consciousness in the folks that have an understanding of what they think God is?
Yeah, what if they were like, oh shit, we got it fucking wrong, right? let's write a better version, you know, and because who can seek to live up to those laws in the Old Testament, right? I mean, that's the reason that the Jewish people have the sacrificial system, because it was impossible to live by the law, you know. So they had every culture in antiquity has for some reason, no matter where you look on planet Earth, has had a blood sacrifice system to appease their gods for some weird reason. It's every corner of the planet. Every ancient culture you use blood sacrifice for some reason, including the Jews. And I'd be curious not to move the goalpost or change the topic, but to ask a clarifying question to Cherie. I like your rhetoric. I like the interesting things you're saying about whatever you call a deity. It's cool if you connect to that, however you call it. What can I ask? What your just for my own reference, what your own seminary schooling is in? Like, are you in the? Is it Christian? Is it Islamic? Is it spiritual?
No, it's Christian. It's a Christian base. My background is I started off in Catholic school, so you're talking to an ex-Catholic school girl who had all of those types of questions, like, why do I need to talk to a priest when I haven't really done any major sin, but I can't be confirmed and be okay unless I make up some kind of error that I made to talk to this intercessory priest, So my background starts there, and over the years, I've really done a lot of exploring, a lot of checking out different faiths. I've checked out all of the Abrahamic faiths. I looked at what is Wicca, what is Sikh, what is so many different paths. And because for me, if I choose to be in this spiritual milieu where I'm supposedly a leader, I've got to be able to walk that talk, right? I don't believe that there is anything loving or Christ-like in being horrible to each other, being at war with each other, judging each other, bullying each other. I don't see that as Christ consciousness.
But it is kind of
that being
God's
said, how do we
consciousness.
explain, say, the Crusades, the Inquisition, residential schools, for that matter? Those are all things instituted allegedly by the Word of God.
Well, no,
Were
it's
they just
allegedly by the people who are interpreting what they think God's laws are. It's mankind that's creating all of these systems that, let's face it, the majority of them are broken.
That's an understatement.
So if we can see that there are so many broken systems, how can we not look at religion and say, oh my God, the amount of abuse and damage that so many of traditional religions have espoused on people? It's time for a reckoning. It's time to say, who designed these rules? Who is this God? Every time I hear someone doing something abhorrent as a Christian, I cringe inside. And I'm like, that's not following the path of Jesus the Christ. That is some person's interpretation of standing in moral judgment of someone else based on their world lens, based on their culture, based on how they were raised and what they were told as children.
So I guess the difficult thing that I know a lot of sort of non-believers struggle with is when you have something along the lines of people that do horrible acts in the name of God, in the name of their religion. When you have all this, what I don't understand is sure, you're taking this as the human aspect, but if somebody sullies my name, if I build a business and somebody's going out and in my business is going out doing horrible acts in the name of my business, in the name of my name, well, I'm gonna put a stop to that. I'm gonna do something to make sure that people understand that that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm trying to preach out to. That's what I'm trying to say to the world. What a lot of people find discouraging or difficult is the fact that, you know, like Jesus came out at a time when there was very few people and so many horrible things, much worse than what was happening at that time. So much worse has happened since, but yet no second coming, no God to appear to say, all right, look, screw this. We can't have priests diddling kids. We can't have these guys starting wars in our name. We can't have this. But yet there seems to be nothing. And I wonder how the belief can exist, knowing that this almighty deity that we look up to and this divine person that we look up to is going to sit idly by and allow their name to be sullied by people within its own sort of like the people that are supposed to be ruling that sort of thing, spreading that word from the top. How are people supposed to get past that and still believe?
Is that to me?
That's to whoever wants to answer.
Whoever wants to.
So to simplify that question, do I hear you saying that how do people get past the own massive what's the word? Massive lack of cohesion in any given faith system?
More so what Gord's trying to get at is if one of us were God and we saw people doing things in our name that weren't the way we intended, we're God. You know? I'd be like, I would say something. Go, hey, dudes, you got it all wrong. Get it right, or I'm flooding again. Or whatever. You know?
I'd be spiting said individual. I'd be stopping it. Like, I don't understand the lack of action from a person, from a deity, from a spirit, from an energy source that could create all that it's supposed to have created, and so you'll do nothing.
With a proven history of stepping in. I mean, the Bible says he's stepped in quite a few times, and it seems in the last 2020 years, he just went, fuck it, you guys are on your own. You would think.
And what if people's attribution to that being of God is incorrect? What if God was not involved in the flood? What if God was not involved in Sodom and Gomorrah? Right? It's someone's interpretation that God stepped in. The same way as today, people have their interpretation that they're doing it under God's will. But
okay.
It's really their own interpretation, their own prejudices, their own biases that are driving them. And human beings are so creative in justifying their actions. Well, what could be more justified than saying, God, I'm doing what God wants me to do?
But that puts the question of Jesus into play, though. Jesus actually exists, or is that just some dude telling a story? You know, and that's...
Indeed.
But that's just... But a lot of the Christian belief is based off of Jesus alone. So taking the fact that you have to consider, okay, Jesus is alive. Okay, Jesus existed. Even if you go based on that alone and nothing else, God put Jesus on earth to straighten people out. That's the reason Jesus
hear
put on.
What type of carpenter he was. You never hear if he was a good carpenter or not. No one ever talks about that.
Would it be nice to have like one of his tables or something? That'd be amazing.
No. He was a finished carpenter. He was walking around nailing in door jams.
Did he ever use like that single hammer hit every time? Just that perfect hit every time?
Tap, tap, bam, 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 bam.
So
but that's the thing that really gets me.
That's where I have a problem with it. If it is that open to interpretation, then I don't know. I guess that's a little too convenient, isn't it? Because I just find the interpretation that fits me and my beliefs, and then I can go be a man of God. I find which one works better for me.
And then, unfortunately, you take whatever interpretation works best for you, but you use the same verbiage that everybody else uses when they're using the interpretation that works best for them, right? That's why I said if you ask 100 different Christians what that means to be a Christian, you'll probably get close to 100 different answers. because there is no cohesion in what that means. And that's not inherently a bad thing necessarily. I mean, it is if you're going to claim that it's the absolute truth and that no one comes to the Father except through God in the Bible. Then we have a big problem because Christians can't agree on what Christianity is.
And that's where my biggest problem comes with it. But let's dive right in then, because if the Bible is just our interpretation, if it's not the Word of God, that means it can be changed. If enough people agree, then there should be amendments. I'm
not going to bore you with church history, but I mean, we can go into the canonization process. But yeah, I mean, many versions of what are regarded as divine writings in the Christian faith, and I would assume in every faith over the course of the past 2,000 years.
See, and the one that's obviously the most prevalent is the King James Bible, and I don't think anyone would argue that the King James Bible is a not completely manipulated by King James.
I mean,
See, I haven't. Yeah, my
go ahead,
is
Gordon.
okay. To a weird extent, I think that the Big Bang all but proves a form of creationism. What I don't get from that point is I don't understand why anybody would think from that point that whatever created all that we know and see in the entire universe was all created just for us. That's just egotistical. That doesn't make any sense. But the other part is that why this creator of all this would be so focused on just us without having other beings, other experiments, other trials going on throughout the entire universe of whether the stuff would work, and why all of a sudden us praying for our dinner and us thanking him for every aspect of our life all of a sudden becomes a big deal. None of that makes sense. If you're big enough to create all of this, is your ego so sensitive? Is your ego that sensitive that you create all of this just to have people bow down and pray to your every whim? It just doesn't make sense. How do you have that much absolute power and yet you're going to waste it on forcing a creation to bow down to your whim and your belief system when you're not even going to be clear about what it is. Mm-hmm. B, you're not going to show yourself to prove that you exist, to say, because there's the idea of the free will of man. God created the free will of man. It's a cop-out. Because if you wanted us to believe, if you said, no, here's the set of rules, once these things stray and you see that there's innocence being brought into these falsehoods of what the belief is, then every once in a while, it's just like anything else. So when you're running a business and your company starts veering on the wrong path, you stop, you bring everybody in, you have a company meeting, you discuss the future of the business, of where it is, of what you're going, what the past is, here it is, and then you move forward as there. There's none of that in religion. And especially in today's day and age where you have, I mean, the fact that agnostic exists, for me, should be the ultimate blasphemy against any form of religion.
Absolutely. I don't believe agnosticism actually exists. My contention is you can't be a functioning agnostic. You either believe something or you don't.
Yeah, to say that I believe just in case, that's basically what it is. I believe just in case. And it's a cop-out, and face it, if you believe just in case, you know you're going to hell for the belief because it's blasphemous against the belief anyway. So it just, none of it makes sense. But for me, a lot of it just all comes down to the simple fact that all of this couldn't possibly have been created just for us. And then to have this hyper ego-sensitive being that's not human-like but seems to have these human traits in the sense of ego and demand that we bow down to him or it, and to follow a certain set of guidelines in order to get to the good or the bad place. it just doesn't seem to make sense in any sense of the form. Like there doesn't seem any real logic to it. I believe in a form of spiritualism. I've had enough experiences in my life to say this is why I have the belief of the creationism as it is, because there's an energy that would sort of bind everybody together. I think that's the energy of creationism that binds it all together. I don't think it goes anything past that, because if there truly is a God, and if he truly created all this for us, he is the laziest, most insufficient boss ever, and he can hold that trophy high to say that I created all this and I ain't doing nothing since. I'll put my kid down there to get supper, but I'm never going to do anything else about it. It just, I don't know. Seems
What
like a
you just
cop-out.
described in a nutshell was Apple Podcasts.
Sadly, I think you're right.
That's funny.
So my contention always all through university was, academically, it's called the epistemological juxtaposition of determination versus free will, wherein if God's omnipotent, God is all-knowing and all-seeing, therefore you cannot have free will. He knows what you're going to do. So you can
Right.
claim to have free will all you want, but it's already predetermined. So you really don't have free will. Am I wrong about that?
I mean,
Anybody?
if there were a God that were all knowing, I mean, then there would be no free will, or at the very least, that God would know exactly what you were going to choose before you chose it. So
Exactly.
that's at the very least. But what I heard Cherie say earlier, she said, and Cherie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard Cherie say earlier that whatever you call God, whether it a he, a she, an energy, a what,
So-
why the hell it rained in 45 days. Maybe we pissed something off. So let's do something random to try to appease that something. Somehow those things written into the fiber of all kinds of religions and tribal traditions and other types of paradigms, because like, okay, well, how do we explain what the hell's happening when we don't understand, astrophysics and astronomy and weather cycles and so on and so on and so forth? And so that's the reason we haven't had any major religions created in the past 2,000 years. Because people got smarter. And we can have the answers for those things. And we don't need to blame them on a deity. Though people still do. Like here around Nashville, everyone's talking, oh, I'm so glad God spared me from the tornado. Well, what about your neighbor? Did God intentionally fuck them up by destroying their house and having the house come crashing down on the whole family? I mean, it's we still use God as a scapegoat for explaining things that we don't understand. But, I think I see where Cherie was going earlier when she said that whatever you refer to it as, there's an energy, whether it be beyond us, I don't know. Maybe there's an energy that connects us and all of creation, all that is. I mean, I don't know. Am I wrong in that, Cherie?
No, I think you brought a lot of valid points to the surface. I think even when we're talking about, sullying my name and if I was a business owner and what I would do, all of those are in our human constructs. Do you get that? That's in our human constructs. That doesn't apply to something that's greater than ourselves or energy or whatever. We created all of these. Well, there has to be a second comment. Well, God smote that person. Well, God bless this person. And we can see it today, like when we have our favorite sports teams and we have that lucky shirt that we are so sure that we wear that shirt, we are going to win, right? Just something simple like that. And we construct this mythology to explain what's happening. It's human nature. We are human-making machines. I mean, we make meaning of everything. Human meaning-making machines.
So is there,
I
in
think
your opinion,
religion
is
a
there
lot of
one
that.
God, and all our interpretation, if you're right, but at the end of the day, is there just one God that's overseeing all this and letting us make these mistakes?
So in my humble opinion, I believe there is one energy. Multiple people have created religions to explain that energy, to appease that energy, to have some kind of connection to that energy. And we've put it in a framework that is in the human construct.
So
That's
is that
what I
energy,
believe.
is this energy you speak of, is it responsible for good and evil?
No. Good and evil is a human construct as well.
So could
So
there
if I-
be all good without evil?
Oh, I was fixing to go there if someone didn't.
Like, if that's true, like, so if that's just a truly human construct, then technically that would mean that humans have the ability as an
It's our
entire
interpretation of an event. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to use
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
There she
get-
goes. Okay.
Okay, we lost you, Sheree. You're back.
Oh, I'm back?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, I can see. I'm in the middle of nowhere, my friends, surrounded by mountains. So I apologize if I drop out.
No worries.
But if we did not get a job and we called that bad, is it really bad?
no.
or-
Just waiting for the right one
or
to come
is it-
along.
Maybe.
Mhm.
So I think so much of our interpretation of good and evil is subjective, and it's based on our perception of good and evil. I don't believe God looks at the allness that is God as good and evil.
But there's certain criteria that fits the description of evil, no matter how you look at it. You know, a rapist, a pedophile, a Hitler, as an example, that does mass extinctions, or the few there before. That is the pure definition of evil, no matter what you are, no matter like if you're human or not. There's animals that would be looking at this going, are you out of your goddamn mind? We would, like, this is stupid. But even a deity that created all would have to recognize that difference between, like I said, the small things, absolutely. All that is just a matter of perception, like if my kid goes into surgery and if he comes out of surgery, is that God's will or was it the skill of the surgeons? That's all the easy stuff to put into question, and I'm fine with that sort of thing. But it's the big stuff that puts things into question, like war. You start a holy war against another group
which
strictly
almost
because
every
of their
war
belief.
technically is. And when you break it down, most...
And was less than. You say, the small things are a matter of perspective, but maybe, not saying this is what I believe, but maybe everything's a matter of perspective. But I don't know what that means if it is, but
I
But
would
that makes
say
it way
no,
too
only
easy.
because-
That lets you get away with whatever you want. If you
But
you
no,
just
no,
say
no,
that,
but
then
here's-
you can get away with anything and go, oh well, it's just I don't see it as evil, and my God doesn't see this as evil. Your interpretation's wrong. I can wipe out 6 billion
Here's the
people.
difference, though.
My God says that's not evil.
See, but here's the difference. I get what you're saying, but here's the difference. And again, we'll use Hitler as a great example. Hitler didn't do what he did in the name of God.
true.
Hitler was all about the exploration of the different types of gods, the different types of the paranormal, and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't about religion. So that's where that argument would have to die out and fail, because it wasn't Hitler didn't do what he did in the name of God.
But from the
Oh, I was
perspective
just
of a
speaking-
religious person, he had to, because you do everything you do is God's will. So if you're on Hitler's side, but you're religious, you have to say, oh yeah, this was commanded by God at some point.
If you're the kind of believer in a God that thinks that your God is in control of everything on a direct level, and not even every Christian believes that.
Yeah.
Many entire sects of Christianity don't believe that.
But that just makes it so convenient that because you can just work anything into your belief and go, well, I don't believe what those other Christians believe. But, well, then
You're right.
That's like
See, no, that brings up to one question I ask
have a God. I pray to my God, and he finds me incredibly intelligent and funny, and that's why I chose him as my God. That
See, but that brings me up to one question that I ask a lot of Christians, and I do not ever get a straight answer out of this one, which always amuses me, which is plain and simple. You believe in God as a Christian. You believe in Jesus. It's the whole basis of your religion is based really off of Jesus, more so than God himself. It's all based off religion.
One woman really sticking to her story.
Well, yeah. So when in Jesus' time, and this is very well documented, Jesus was a Jew. He followed the Judean faith. How can you be Christian and be against or not follow the same faith of the person that you believe in?
Say that again.
Well, Jesus was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
It's well known. It's well documented.
By nationality, not religion.
Well, to a large degree, that's what Judaism is a culture and a heritage as well as a faith, but sometimes more one than the other.
So the question though becomes how, if I were to end up saying, you know what, I believe Jesus is real, I believe everything will happen. How could I not be of the same faith that he himself was? Because he came, he in the Bible he admits it. Like he states the fact that he was.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, as a Christian or Hindu or anybody, if you believe in Jesus, how can you possibly follow any other faith other than the very one that he himself was a part of?
So I think, and I know Sharif probably has some thoughts on this too. I think that what Jesus claimed to be was, quote unquote, the Lamb of God. He was the final sacrifice that covers all sin, right? That's what the New Testament says. So we don't he quote unquote free. So sometimes the Old Testament is referred to as the law, especially the first 5 books of the Old Testament, or the Torah to Jews. So there's all this sacrificial system and all these things. You have to sacrifice this many things for this many sins, and and that's a big part of, or was a big part of Jewish culture, right? And so Jesus is the final sacrifice to, quote unquote, fulfill the law once and for all. In Hebrew, in the actual Hebrew, it uses what's called the future perfect tense, right? He does it once forever. Does it one time and it covers for forever. And so if you want to make that argument and say, well, Jesus is the final sacrifice as far as Christianity is concerned, then now we're under a new set of rules, right? We don't have to worry about the law and doing X, Y, and Z and making sacrifices for this and that, because Jesus was the final sacrifice that covered everything, which, kind of like Eric's been said several times, is somewhat convenient, right? We don't have all those rules because now we're under, quote unquote, grace, the grace of that final sacrifice. I say we as if I'm still a Christian, and I haven't been one for many, many years, but that's the way that it would be taught by someone that understands the text. And I'm sure Cherie has probably some thoughts on it as well. I'd love to hear those.
Yeah, what you're talking about is the Christology of Jesus as the sacrificial lamb. There's other Christologies of Jesus being a savior. There's other Christologies.
So
those religious sects stating that this is their understanding of what Christ's role was. So that's where we get all the different sects and segments, and we know there have been splits based on folks. Like, for example, when you look at the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church, that split that happened was basically over what was Christ's role. Was Christ the Son of God, or was, a separate God all to himself? And I mean, that was a huge split between the church and the Eastern Church. So once again, this comes down to mankind's definition of what is Christ's role. Who was Christ? What is Christ? And once again, it's our limited understanding of what that is. As far as why are we practicing Judaism if we're followers of Christ, one of the things that I really love about looking and learning about Jesus is he came to usher in a new way of being. I mean, he was overturning tables. He was calling the Pharisees, who were the priests, he was calling them out. He was saying, you're hypocrites. This isn't the way that you need to be. You're being a burden to your own people. Your people are suffering underneath your laws, right? Underneath your purity laws. And you're driven by greed. So I think, if we're saying that we're followers of Christ, true followers of Christ, in my humble opinion, are those that are concerned about their brothers and their sisters, who are concerned about being equal, who are concerned about do they have enough food, housing, whatever else. Followers of Christianity has become so bastardized that we're following these rules that were made up by these patriarchs eons ago. And a lot of them are not following what Christ was doing. If I'm a follower of Christ, what am I going to do? Am I going to be sitting in judgment of someone, or am I going to be inviting them in to break bread with me? Because that's what he did.
Yeah, Jesus pretty much said three things, right? You can just summarize all of his teachings into three things. Take care of people that can't take care of themselves. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And everything else he taught could pretty much be filed under don't be an asshole, right? And I would do, right? I mean,
I like your interpretation. That was good. I gotta give you props for that.
That's good. Don't be an asshole.
There's not much more than those three things that he taught, if anything. And in that way,
I want someone to print that Bible. It's just one sheet.
Oh, wait, I'm halfway through it. Don't spoil it, okay? No, I'm just kidding.
One sheet, 3 lines. See, so now this is where I have a problem with it, because if it really condenses that easily into what we're all saying, then it's unnecessary. If it's all just our interpretation and everything about religion is just man-made and it really doesn't apply anyway, then what the fuck is the point? It's
right.
It's no good for anything. It's a bedtime story. We don't need it, and therefore we can get rid of the Bible. We can get rid of the book. We can say no, it's all just our interpretation, and most Christians get it wrong. Certain Christians get it right, but they don't know it's right yet. And well, then what the hell? Get rid of the whole goddamn thing. We don't need it. I've always maintained we don't need the 10 Commandments. We didn't need this book to tell us those 10 things were wrong. I think we inherently know that those 10 things are wrong. I think with or without Christianity, we would know it's wrong to kill each other. It's wrong to steal each other's shit. It's some of them
don't screw your buddy's wife.
Yeah,
we know that.
And it sounds to me like what I'm getting from you guys is that we can scrap the whole thing. The church is wrong. The leaders of the church are wrong. Every sect is misinterpreting it. Then it's pointless. We're all playing the game by our own rules. Then throw out the rules. We don't need them.
You got my vote.
That's yeah.
Well, I think that it's very easy to do that. I mean, at one point in my life, I considered myself an atheist and then an agnostic. So it's very easy to say, let's just throw everything out. And so my question is, we can do that.
I'm by no means an atheist, but if we're all wrong, or we're so unable to understand this supposed higher power, then Christianity by definition is so flawed that it's absolutely useless, because it's obviously wrong.
And maybe there isn't a right or wrong. Maybe this has been humanity's way of figuring out a way to connect. And in the earlier days, they needed some rules and regulations. That's part of
that's an easy
evolution.
thing that Christians do. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's an easy thing Christians do, is they go, oh,
But
this
you
was
just
old-timey,
interrupted.
and it doesn't apply anymore. Well, no, we're by definition, Christians are saying this applies now. And we can't say, oh, 2,000 years ago they needed this, and now they don't. Well, then, they've been wrong that whole time.
Well, when you look at a lot of like the Jewish purity laws, they were about keeping people healthy and safe. You know, the mixing of different kinds of meats and dairy and whatever else, that was all about safety because they didn't really know. So what I'm saying to you is there is an evolution in human consciousness from being this rigid, rule-driven, and that's how they then create God in their image. It's not the other way around. Religion is about creating God in our image. And so for me, what I'm saying to you is you can throw everything out that you want, but it's about that individual connection.
That's what I mean.
Are you
If it's about the
connecting?
individual
Are you
connection, then organized
connecting?
religion is superfluous. At the end of the day, a book club in the book is correct. And we all find, if you're in a book club and you read the book and at the end of the book the butler did it, then you all have to agree, yeah, the butler did it. The book says so. But what we're saying is it's so individual and it's so... then getting together in the group doesn't solve anything. Because then you're going to have 30 individual opinions or 100 individual opinions, and then it becomes thousands of individual opinions. But at the end of the day, only your individual connection is what matters. Then this makes my whole mission a lot easier, because I think something that's so morally corrupt as the Vatican is gone far too long and far too far in their own direction, and should be eliminated. I fully believe the Vatican should be eliminated. I think it's the root of most of the evil in the world. And if you're correct, Sheree, then we can do that. Because Catholicism is unnecessary.
Well, you can say that it's unnecessary. In my humble opinion, I probably agree with you. I'm not pro-Vatican, so there we are. I think it's a patriarchal society that's based on hierarchy that has become so corrupt it's lost its way. But that doesn't mean that when human beings get together energetically, I'm not talking about opinions. So you're making it on this logical, absolute mathematic perspective. And what I'm saying is that if we are all energy beings, then we need each other. We find comfort in connecting with each other energetically. And if we are doing that work for the passion of the realization of the truth of what we are, divine human beings, then we get to magnify that. We get to shift from the systems that are broken here, or the rules and regs that no longer work for mankind in general, and we get to start saying, well, let's create something different.
But that excuses all kinds
if we
of
get
deviant
rid of the
behavior.
Vatican,
That excuses everything, because I connect by raping children, and I'm going to buy a big ranch in Montana, in the middle of Montana, and I'm going to invite you to bring your kids there so I can fucking defile them. And this is how I connect on my individual way, and my God tells me that that's right. And you
So,
can't,
Eric?
by your own argument, you can't tell me I'm wrong, because you don't know.
first, I hear your passion about this. second, I would love if you don't cut over me, because that's not respectful. So I'd appreciate that, and I allow you to vent as much as you need. That's fine. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we are all accountable for our behaviors. So if my behavior harms another being, I'm accountable for that. And here's the thing, and I am still a divine human being. I may have forgotten that truth, like so many of us have on this realm. We get here and we forget the truth of what we are. We think our physical body and our sexual gratification or greed or money or consumerism is all that there is. And I'm saying that that's not the truth. The truth is we are divine human beings. People do fucked up things. That's right. I said it. People do fucked up things. But that's on them. That's on them, and they have to be held accountable for that.
Which, I mean, for the most part, sorry.
I'm not saying what you interpreted me to say. Please hear that.
But people do messed up things. But in my opinion, now I'm just playing a character here. In my opinion, what I do isn't messed up. So your interpretation of what's right and wrong is incorrect. Mine is correct. How do you?
But that's just a matter of doing the difference between the laws of the land, though.
That's called mental illness and a bunch of other things. So people lose their way. Yes, they do. And they're accountable, and they're divine human, and there's such a thing as forgiveness and grace. They all exist simultaneously. You know, we try to put this whole black and white, right, wrong, evil and good in perspective, and the reality is, if I'm human, I'm all aspects of the human spectrum. There's obviously an aspect of me that could be a rapist, depending on the condition of my environment that I'm raised in. So it's when we point our fingers and we say these people are horrible, and the behavior is horrible, yes, but that doesn't mean that they themselves are horrible. That's my belief. I could be completely screwed up and wrong. I could be off the funny farm, didn't take my meds today. But, you know, I really do believe that we're called, that right now we're all here on this planet to shift consciousness. We are here right now to say, you know what? Religion, this man-made construct, doesn't serve us anymore. Let's create from the divine within.
Well, that's beautiful. That's exactly what I've wanted my entire life. I guess I've been more enlightened than I thought I was, because that's been my whole contention, was that we need to shift away from organized religion. And it sounds like even a Christian minister also feels that way. Then why can't we just move in that direction? What's the
let me, if
money,
I could,
power, and control.
Yeah, it's good. Like, that's the easiest thing. Is religion? Almost every religion is at this stage of the game is based off of the mighty dollar. Mm-hmm. It's dollar and numbers. That's it. It's got nothing to do with anything else. If it did, you wouldn't see a lot of the shit that's going on being allowed to go on. I do see a massive shift in a lot of people that are going from religious belief to spiritual belief, which is, again, kind of that basic thing that I kind of believe in, which is the energy that binds us, not as much as it's a god, as much as it's just the energy of creation.
The majority of people still believe in God as he is described in the Bible. Still a majority of people.
But they've been raised...
In the next 50 years, that's not predicted to change. Christianity is still going to grow, and will, in 50 years from now, will still be a third of the Earth's population believing in the God as it's described in the Bible.
I don't think it is going to grow, and the numbers aren't actually necessarily still growing anymore. The numbers are dwindling with the churches. They're actually dropping.
That's what what everyone likes to think, but actually there's very insignificant amount of change. It's been fairly consistent. That this drop that people will see around them isn't actually happening.
Well, I'll chime in on that one, and I can tell you from my own experiences and talking to lots of ministers, and I do a lot of interfaith connecting, churches are dwindling. They are closing a rate that's unprecedented in our existence so far. So that piece is true. But people's faith and what they say they believe in are pretty much holding, I would say. You're looking at the millennials, they're really being seen as the unchurched, the not churched, because they're questioning. And I'm like, yay for them. Yes, time to do the questioning. So when we look at that, I'm saying to you, what if this podcast goes viral and people get to hear that there's other ways to think about God or see God, or religion, so many of them have become corrupt. That's what we do individually to make a collective conscious change. Do you get that?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That I don't think even Gord knows so much how that is exactly what I want to do with this podcast. Is I want people to understand that 4 different opinions can sit down and have this conversation, and that's okay. And that, because I think there's this,
and we're not yelling at each other, calling each other a bunch of assholes.
I think there's a misconception, that you can't just go speak to a devout Christian and have a healthy conversation with them. I also think there's a misconception that they have no sense of humor. They don't swear. They can't possibly be open-minded and sit and have this kind of a talk with us. And Gordon and I have done it on this show, be it with sex toys, prostate exams, all kinds of uncomfortable things that people think they can't talk about. And me and Gordon go, yeah, you can. And look at this, we can. And we don't have to burn each other's houses down afterwards. So it's exactly what I want. I didn't think I was going to walk away here with the ultimate answer, although I did have the 3 questions I would like answered, but I don't think they apply now, because no one has the hard opinion that the Christian faith is exactly what I've always believed you have to believe to be accepted. I'm actually almost disappointed in how open-minded everybody is, because that really...
Wait, let me get a friend on the line. Hang on.
It makes everything I hold, in my opinion, to be wrong about religion. Apparently, a bunch of religious people think that too. That's I almost don't know what to do with that. We've does that make sense, Gordon? Do you understand what I'm saying? That I really expected someone to go, no, this is God and God is right. But if you
I knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew for a fact that, because because when it comes down to it, when you have, especially with what we're doing, which is what we're putting out the different ideas, the different issues that come up with religion, to find a person who devoutly follows the Bible would never, for the most part, would never come on to a show like this to discuss it openly, because we're putting their belief into question, and they don't believe in having an open conversation. They believe in a very closed circle answer of everything, which is,
yes,
no matter what we give them, it's no, the Bible says. Nope, the
Exactly.
Bible says.
See,
So
but I think if
there
the
wouldn't be a
numbers are dwindling in
discussion.
the way that you guys are saying. Sorry, Gordon, to talk over you, but you would think now more than ever, if this is where the mentality is headed, they would want to talk about it. They would want to plead their case.
But they can't in as much anymore, and that's one of the big thing that becomes a problem with it, is that there's, as much as a lot of devout religious people talk about like their belief in the Bible and Jesus and everything else, the problem is when they deal with, when you put certain facts or certain other ideals out there, such as like in the name of Christ, all this bad stuff has happened. That's directly in the name of, or people that are in the actual Vatican, which is supposed to represent the entire belief system of the Christian faith. All the sects are based underneath this one building, and these people themselves are doing horrible things to other individuals. It puts too much pressure on them to be able to come up, because your answers don't fly anymore. Of being say, well, the Bible says it. No, the Bible doesn't say it's okay to do these things.
Just to be, for lack of a better term, devil's advocate, your answers don't need to fly because they're the fucking word of God. So I don't care if you say they fly or not. God said it, and you guys are all fucked when you find out I'm right.
No, but that's why they wouldn't come on a show, because they don't feel the need to justify because the belief is already fully justified. There is no answer they can give that will churn you. So therefore, they wouldn't come on to a show like this. I was hoping for an open discussion like this, where we would have that healthy mix of everything. And Therese, I'm ecstatically happy that you joined us as a continuing minister. I think this is just amazing that you'd be able to help put that perspective of somebody who still follows a part of that belief and on it. I think that's just awesome, and hands off for you for joining. So thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't
just
agree
had
more.
to say that in there.
Now, because my whole plan is kind of a little shot, I would like to know where we came from this. And Jeffrey, if we can get personal for a minute, you were an evangelist and a minister, and you've had what? Can you tell us, if you don't mind, what it was that made you step away from that?
Oh, I get asked that question with some frequency, and I wish there was some easy answer for it, but it was just time, just pulling at the thread, I was always a lot different as a teacher and a pastor and then an evangelist, and I didn't dance to the same tune that a lot of other people in my particular sect or did, and I've always been a questioning person. Some things just never felt right about the religion as a whole, organized religion as a whole, and Christianity specifically, but kind of like you said earlier, kind of make my own version of it to some degree, just cutting out certain details of this and that, and that didn't really matter, but to me anyway. And then started just kind of just pulling at the loose threads, and once you start pulling at the threads, if you pull long enough, the whole thing's going to unravel. It's just a matter of time. You got two choices, and I know several folks that have started pulling at the threads of their faith, and if you got two choices when you realize where it's going to go, and there's a very normally kind of definitive point where you realize where it's going, and your choice is to go, oh shit, I'm just going to pretend like I didn't pull it this far. It hasn't unraveled as far as it has. I'm just going to go back because that's what I know. Or you can keep pulling and deal with the backlash. I mean, and it sucks. I had my entire paradigm, worldview, systems of checks and balances beyond just trying to be a good human, all, and my livelihood had all of that come crashing down around me. And then the smoke settles and dust settles, and you go, okay, well, fuck, now what? And then you go enter into this time of intense existential angst of going, I do not fucking know what direction is up right now. And in the end, I'm like, you know what? That's really fucking freeing, because I'm not now bound by some system of, X, Y, or Z. Now I can just focus on being a good human, which is all I wanted to do anyway, and just be a good human and treat folks the way I want to be treated and take care of folks that can't take care of themselves. Here in Nashville, everyone's helping everyone right now. And, it's kind of an unpopular question, but I'm like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, okay, so we have this horrible tragedy, and tens of thousands of people lost everything they have, and tens of thousands are still without power here in Nashville. And it's like, so the whole city unites and they're helping their neighbor, but what does that mean when 2 weeks from now you're not going to give a second thought about your neighbor? You should go right back to being a selfish motherfucker. So is the helpfulness of your neighbor the reality of who you are, or is that just something that is generated from this tragedy? What's real, right? And I just try to be the best human that I can. It's that simple. Plenty of folks deserve a throat punch. I'm and that's just the way it is. And yeah, plenty of people need help. And
well, there's a good way to put it to a test, and it's something Gordon and I have been trying to implement for over 2 years now, and we just called it the easiest thing in the world. And we're asking our listeners and anyone who wants to join in. It's a really simple initiative, and we would like you to hashtag easiest thing in the world and tell us what you did to do it. And this is all you have to do for us. Not for us, for yourself, really, is go about your day as you normally would. Don't do anything different that you would do every other day. But when you encounter someone during the day, try to be nice to them. That's it.
Right.
Literally the easiest thing in the world. And you would be amazed how quickly things start to change and how contagious that is, and how you don't have to give money. You don't have to do something special. Just try to be nice all day. And it literally is the easiest thing in the world, but it's infectious, and it works miracles. Literally. What I would call miracles. And that's
I end every
start on that
you don't need a
Right.
hurricane or a tornado or a what we had here were massive forest fires that almost destroyed my hometown. You don't need that to be good to each other, and you'll. So I would like to believe, Jeffrey, that it is every day. That kindness to your neighbor could be every day. I think
absolutely.
we just kind of. I think two things have happened in this generation, or the younger generation, the millennials that Cherie speaks of. I think we've forgotten how to fake it. People 30 years ago didn't like each other any more than they do today, but you faked it. When you saw your neighbor on the street, you smiled and said hi, and then behind closed doors you went, I hate that prick. I think we need to go back to just that faking it and that general just politeness, being just basic manners in public would make a huge difference.
Oh, see, now I'm going to disagree totally on faking it. Like if you just hate someone, don't fake like you don't. If someone doesn't like me, I would much rather them say, "Hey, man, I just can't really fucking stand you." And I may say, "Oh my God, is there something I've done that's perpetuated that?" And they may say, "Well, as a matter of fact, yeah." And then maybe we can resolve that. Maybe I've done something that I'm not aware of to make that person not like me. But maybe maybe our energies just don't jive, right? And that's okay too. But I mean, I think the list of people that you genuinely don't like is much smaller compared to people that you do like. I think the difference is, instead of like what you call fake it, just be nice to your neighbor, is just that we don't take the time to interact with fellow humans. We're just so involved in our own headspace and our own selves, and most of the time in our phone, when you're walking around, that we don't take the time to interact with our fellow human beings. And I think that's what I hear you saying is interact with people. I end every episode of my podcast with saying, it's kind of what you said, be kind, smile at someone, don't punch anybody in the face that doesn't deserve it. Right. I mean, and that's a good way to be. Like, I mean, be kind, smile at someone. A smile can go a long way, because everyone's walking around dealing with shit that you don't know. I'm walking around dealing with shit that the average person that I run into in the grocery store has no idea what I'm going through, and a smile may go a long way.
Don't smile too hard, though. That goes into a
Yeah,
whole
It's
nother
creepy,
thing
right?
these
That
days.
gets creepy. I get accused of that a lot.
Don't stand behind the lettuce in the grocery store peering over at someone, and when they finally look over at you, grin real big.
apparently standing in the produce section, rubbing melons and staring at people gets really creepy. I don't know why. I used to work at a grocery store. I know these things.
I actually have a
reactive word there.
right. I have this fun little game I play with myself. This is totally off topic, but speaking of grocery stores, I have been known to on a semi-regular basis in the store by myself just to arrange produce in conspicuous arrangements.
Oh, absolutely. That's just a joy.
Or stuffed animals randomly on the shelf, find themselves in
Precarious situation.
yes. And I just walk away going, I wonder who's going to notice it first.
Yeah, you know who notices
that
first?
it's gonna be
God.
But you know who won't say anything? God.
Yeah, it's true. Wow, this is thank you both for joining us. I expected one other guest to join us, and I really wanted his perspective because he's a biblical scholar, but his focus is on Bibles that were written before the invention of the printing press. He studies Bibles from before the printing press, which I thought would be really neat to get into because those are the only ones I really care about. I think those are the most legitimate ones, if they are at all. But
sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say I referenced way earlier in the conversation the canonization process of the Bible, the process of how we came to have the Christian Bible that we have today. And there's still multiple versions depending on where you are in the world and what sect of Christianity you follow or Catholicism you follow. But I mean, it's there's been. I mean, it's interesting to me. It's a clusterfuck of a timeline of and even a couple of popes over through history have been proponents of having a vastly expanded Bible. I can't recall. I think Pope Innocent I was one of them. And was it Pope Innocent or no? It was Pope. I forget which Pope. There was a Pope that Pope Damascus I. Excuse me, not Innocent. He kind of was not popular at all, and he was in the 4th century, several hundred years after Jesus, and he wanted a whole huge extra list of things to be added to the Bible, but it kind of came to be where it was, and it didn't really get settled definitively, if you can even say that loosely, until
something that always
about 1500 AD, about 1500 years later.
Something that really highlights, I think, my main problem with it, and this is an actual statistic, that year over year, the Bible is the number one shoplifted book every year.
It's interesting. I think any church would give you one, I think, but whatever.
No, it's around the world, it's the number one shoplifted book. I think, okay, well, right there, you guys are getting it really wrong.
Starting off the bat. Like Eric said, it's a bit of a shame this other guy didn't call about the history, because there's one thing that I've never been a huge proponent of the idea of Jesus was who he was, but there is one thing that kind of, I guess, I don't want to say proves the story as much as I possibly could. When you go through the history of the major prophets sent by God, or you go through the history of them, the bulk of them all have, like the ones that are like Jesus, they all have one massive commonality, a bunch of commonalities. It was, Immaculate Conception, raised to the brief, got tortured, died, came back. All those things that are all common between everyone. It's like they just sort of stole the same story from each one all the way through. But there's one difference between Jesus and all the rest. All the other ones, all the other prophets lived out their days. Jesus was the only ones that ascended to heaven as a body, and there is no body of Christ. There's the shroud, there's this, but there is no actual body of Christ. The Spirit of Christ didn't live on the rest of his days. He ascended out to heaven. It's the only thing that I find interesting when it comes into the difference between Jesus and all the other true prophets.
As a matter of fact,
I had a buddy in high
the
school
major
whose
prophets
dad was a cop, and he got to skate on a few things too, because his dad was a cop. You kind of got the same thing if you're Jesus. I'm sure you get to slide once in a while on a, if anyone can, you would think.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. It's the only one that kind of proves the existence of a God is the story of Jesus. I mean, I can understand why there's the belief in it, I guess is what I'll say, even though a lot of the rest of it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if you're looking at the grand scheme of, okay, let's look at history of the past, like there was, 150,000 plus odd prophets known. Out of those, you had, I can't even think of the number, 30-something actual prophets of God, in the sense that ones that came down and descended from or created by God to be placed on there, not that they became prophets. Jesus is the only one whose body ascended, and I don't know. I just thought that was a. I'm
gonna actually slightly correct you.
Oh.
In the actual in the Christian Bible as we know it today, not Catholic, but in the Western Christian Bible, a major prophet that has his own book called no, he doesn't. Sorry, he doesn't have his own book. It's in First or Second Kings. I forget which it is in the Old Testament. A prophet named Elijah actually was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire, drawn by horses of fire. And as he ascends into heaven, his mantle falls to the ground, and his disciple Elisha picks it up and becomes the next prophet. So there is actually a
So
story.
there was a second one then.
Elijah
was the other one. Oh, interesting.
I
didn't realize that he actually ascended.
And there's another very obscure reference. I believe it's in Genesis where this very obscure character. Now, if you read the Apocrypha in the Catholic canon of the Bible, he has his own book, the Book of Enoch. But Enoch, there's this one verse about Enoch in the Western Christian Bible, and it is, Enoch walked with God and was no more, for God took him. It's like, time out now. Can we just...
There's got to be more to this.
Right. Let's unpack that, right? But Christians just read right over it, and it's like, okay. And like, no one stops and asks, now, do what now? what happened again? But yeah, so there's two other, one for sure, one what the fuck was that about reference in the Bible.
Why does that one get so overlooked? That's a weird one.
Mm-hmm.
That's so strange. I didn't even know about that. I haven't read the Bibles in a very, very long time.
Nor I. But I got a photographic memory, and I spent so much time preaching it. It's all in there, right?
I think it's just because there's no way to make Enoch sound cool.
Right?
Unless it's in a Star Wars movie, that would work.
Right?
Well, I guess really the point what we've all agreed on today is Star Wars is just as valid, really. If that's your if you believe in the Jedi faith and that guides you to be a good person, then it's just as valid as Christianity, which is fantastic. I wonder now. I have to change my original 3 questions, and Sherry, if you're still with us, maybe you can help me out with this. Then I'm going to totally revamp my first question and say, is there a valid pro-life argument that's not Christian? Is there, or an anti-abortion argument, I should say, that's not religious based? Can anybody jump in?
You're probably asking.
Is there a valid pro-life argument that's not religious?
Yeah, of course there is.
Yep.
Don't murder. That's the valid non-religious argument.
But I don't see it as murder because I don't believe that an embryo is alive yet.
That's semantics. Whether you believe it's an embryo or not, it's still the creation of life. And you're still killing something that is going to eventually turn into an actual birth of a human.
So is eating.
Well, yeah, of course, but I have no problems with it personally, so I don't care. I'll call it murder.
No,
I just don't give a
appreciate you
shit.
trying to take a stance.
Nothing to me.
Because my whole argument kind of going into this day with the original 3 questions that I had that were, Sherry, you didn't receive them. The 3 questions I had were, if abortion is the ultimate evil, why didn't God just make it lethal? So that if you even considered abortion, you would die. There, problem solved. My other question, which really, in light of this conversation that has no real validity anymore, is why isn't "don't fuck kids" one of the commandments? You would think that should be. But I guess if we don't really subscribe to the man-made Bible, then that makes sense. I still think it should at least be implied somewhere in that book. I think anyone claiming to be a good Christian would make room for an 11th or get rid of one of them and put "don't fuck kids" there. And the third question I had that I still have, and anyone who believes in a higher power and that something created everything, what the hell is with Australia? Australia makes, if I can't conceive in my mind of a God who sat there one day and said, I'm going to make a tropical paradise. I'm going to surround it by deadly jellyfish and sharks. I'm going to fill it with assholes and marsupials. And every year, for no reason, I'm going to burn the whole thing down. Why would any God make a place like that? I just don't. It makes no sense.
Well, when you put it like that,
So I can tell that we've gone into some strange places.
Yeah.
You haven't heard from me for a while, but I can tell you that I am pro-abortion. I can tell you that the definition of life or not life or what a woman does with her body, no one has the right to make those laws, in my humble opinion.
Well done.
I can also say that I commend you for having this discussion and for being willing to listen and to just really put out what your passions are around the topic. Kudos to you for having it. Not many people are willing to take the risk and be insensitive or irreverent, for lack of a better term. So thank you for having this discussion. And I also wanted to point out that the more that we do this, what I call othering people, that's the separation, So we have people that believe in a religion. We have people that can't come to terms on what sense of Christology they believe in. And I invite you to imagine that you're born into a family that they see the sky is green. No matter what you say or see, they're going to convince you that it is green. And as a child, your very survival depends on agreeing with them. And you become to know that the sky is green. So I'm not holding them in judgment. I get why people may think the way that they think. And what my invitation is that we have an opportunity to look at our belief systems, to really dig in deep and look at, is this what I really believe, or is this what mom taught me or what my grandmother thought? And then be willing to discern, what do I keep And what do I let go of that no longer serves me? So I think that's our responsibility as divine human beings in this world in which we're trying to create anew, is that we really have to look at what belief systems, also known as BS, we've brought into that really isn't ours and isn't truth. So that's kind of where I land as in ministry, is just really encouraging people to, in a non-judgmental, non-fear-based, to look at their beliefs and say, you know what, this is crock. I don't know where this came from, but I'm going to create a new belief system.
Well,
So, Sharice, let me ask you a
I
substantive
have
question
to
about
just say,
the
Gord,
ministry.
before you do, let me just say, if I may be so bold, amen. That is
Well, yeah.
absolutely, I think, if that is a word we can spread universally, I'll get right behind that one right now. Very well said, and
Absolutely.
thank you so much for joining us. If anything, just so I could hear that. Really,
Now, Sharice,
Sherry, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about your ministry. Now, I'm assuming you get up in front of people and you speak. Is that correct?
I do.
Okay. Do you follow any of the traditional? I don't know what you call it, but like the mannerisms that follow through Christian churches. Like my girlfriend is a Christian Catholic. I'm going to be honest, I don't know the difference. But I've been to her church a few times, and you have the thing where they say a certain term, and then everybody responds back with "and to be with you" or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you do that aspect of a tour? Or have you sort of changed the entire process of what it is and means to go to church?
But I have changed it significantly. You guys should really look at what New Thought communities are. There's several. They're called Centers for Spiritual Living. They're called Unity. And it's really about metaphysical interpretation of the Bible. So we look at it from the perspective of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness. And what my take is that I bring in things that people are uncomfortable with or have not made peace with it. Because anytime that we see something and that we say that's bad and that's separate, we've created resistance within ourselves. And so for me, it's like, okay, so let's call it back in and look at it from a new perspective and redefine through our metaphysical interpretation what this really is. So like, let's say for me, I had an issue with the penance things, like after you said to the priest, you had to go to the priest and do that. So anytime like I heard anything about confession, my back would get up. And so I wasn't able to then be present with what is. And so for me, it was looking at, so what is that? What meaning am I making about this whole confession thing? And what I realized is I had this interpretation from churches that I was born in sin, and therefore I was just like this corrupt being from my very birth. Can you imagine looking at a newborn baby and looking and going, "Oh, you sinful thing, you"? Not true, right? And so I had to really like do research and look at that and go, "Oh, I get this." Yeah, there are times that I miss the mark. I'm in error, and I can then, like through my own self-awareness, work on that and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, you know what? When I flipped the bird at that person while I was driving down the street, that may not have been my highest good. That may not have been how I want to show up in the world as a divine human being." And I then get to shift that. With me?
With you.
All right.
100%.
I like that.
Um,
I fully appreciate it. That's amazing.
I really went into this thinking I was going to get to convince a bunch of really judgmental Christian people that they were wrong. And turns out I've been the shitty judgmental one this whole time.
No one is half
We
the
all
battle.
are. We all are. That's the beauty. Because once we say, I am of that thing that I'm judging, then we're off the hook.
Yeah,
You
right.
get it? We're off the hook, my friends.
We're all
That's
part of
what
the same race.
conversation is about. I love it. Love it. But I've been with you for 2 hours driving down the road, so I'm going to give you my love and a peace out and just
Thank
say
you
keep
so
up the
much
good work.
for joining us, and thank you for just for everything. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Nice
you,
Greatly
guys.
appreciate it. Thank you very much, Sheree. We appreciate you having you on.
Thank you.
I am-
Bye
And you're
now.
welcome any day.
I'm about gonna have to bounce myself.
Absolutely, Jeffrey. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you guys too. Anytime.
And I'm actually
Oh, yeah.
having a blast following you guys. Do you want to give a plug to your podcast for us, real quick?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's the Functionally Dysfunctional Show. And so many fucking religions groups. There's so many fucking rules, but
It's
I'd rather
true, and
just
I've
get together
actually
with like-minded
felt
people.
bad, like introducing myself to them because I almost feel like, once they hear me say the F word on my show, they're not going to like me anymore.
Right.
So your group
too.
is absolutely
That's why
necessary.
I created that group. I was like, man, let's just get a bunch of people that are real fucking humans and doing this podcast thing and let's collaborate.
Oh yeah, I think Eric used to mention it to me, and then one day he brought it up a couple of weeks ago. He's like, "Have you ever?" He goes, "Have I ever sent you over to this one?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." It's just for explicit podcast. I'm like, "You send me that fucking link now."
I did finally send it to you, right?
Yeah, and I'm now officially a part of it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
So yeah.
happy to promote it. Once again, everybody, it's the Functionally Dysfunctional Show. That did that did not go the way I thought it was going to go whatsoever. Not that any of our interview shows ever do.
No, it
how
didn't. Same here. Go for it. How do I what?
I don't know what to do with that. I guess I'm wrong. if that's the state of Christianity today, then things are okay.
See, that's just it. I think it makes me a little more eased knowing that the outlook is moving away from the organized religion, the man-made created stories of your, into what it
that's been my
really
whole
should be,
problem with
which
it.
is, yeah. And it's really nice to see that it's changing. The only thing that I'm scared about is if this catches on, the only thing that'll happen after this will end up being the new religion, which will end up becoming corrupted.
Yeah.
Because that's what always every new religion that came off of the very first religion that was ever created, which was I actually had it on my computer. I don't have it anymore. Actually, wait, I do. Like the very first religion, as far as anybody knew it, was what the fuck is that? That is not it at all.
Cosmocrator?
Well, it was technically the bear worship, which is what started. But yeah, I mean, like, it basically starts from whatever, and as it makes its way throughout society and groups and everything else, each one just takes, for the most part, a principle off that one, applies it to that day and age of the new one, and it goes on and so forth until now that we have 8.5 billion fucking religions for 7 billion people.
Yeah.
It's just gotten a little out of control with that, but knowing but the one commonality is that each religion, once it catches on to a major thing, it all becomes bastardized. It all becomes humanized, really, is what it brings it down to. And I would be ecstatically happy to be a part of, I guess, the belief system that takes away man and all of its bullshit flaws and puts it into what religion or what belief is supposed to be, which is just be good to others and stop being a dick.
Right? It sounds like basically the 10 Commandments could be the 3 that Jeffrey brought up. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Don't punch anyone in the face who doesn't deserve it. Don't be an asshole. I could get behind that. That's what you and I say every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's almost. I'm
more than
almost
fine.
disappointed in a way.
Say all these specific words, and the priest says something. The priest always sings in one monolithic tone, which is frustratingly annoying.
Yeah.
You know,
That bugs me
we're-
about most podcasts too. By the way.
oh my God, does we hear some of these guys talk? There's no life, and I don't get it. Ugh.
Wow. Well, I gotta say, I'm not proud because I am now the worst case scenario. I am the judgmental one. I am the not open minded guy. It sucks a little bit. I'm going to have to completely change my view. Which is the exact opposite of what today was all about. So I'm not publishing this episode. Screw you guys. It's live. I can't do that. What an awesome thing. And I got to say, thank you, Gord, for just being such a great partner on this ride. I've never learned so much in my life as I've learned in the last couple of months of doing this show. And to our listeners, thank you guys for sticking around. This is the official end of season 2, but we're still going all next week. But we are shifting to our regular, a new format for season 3, where we're going to be doing just Monday to Thursday. We're going to keep it as close to 6 p.m. Eastern time as possible, although next week's a little bit all over the map. But join us live. We'll be live every day. Feel free to join us live on Spreaker.com. We're going to be interviewing like this because I learned a ton from these interviews. We're going to try to just do like one a week, I think, is probably best for us. And then 3 days of your usual Eric and Gord telling you what's up.
Okay.
But I'm really looking forward to it. And it feels to me like we are embarking on now we're getting started. I think these last 2 years have been,
Yeah.
I have personally made every mistake humanly possible, as far as podcasting is concerned. I don't view them that way. I think I just did things a different way than everyone else did. But I really feel like now we've got our footing. Now it begins. Now we'll see if we have a viable show or not. So everyone listening, please
think the
stick with
upswing
us.
is it.
We will be broadcasting all next week, but our official season 3 premiere is the 18th. And that's just an arbitrary date. It's Wednesday, March 18th, because that was the day the show started. That is technically the official third-year anniversary. And I'm stoked, buddy. I think we got a cool year coming up.
Absolutely. Something available tomorrow on Monday. This is something that Eric and I have talked about a little bit. And Eric, I don't think you know about this official release yet. But there's a documentary coming out on Monday, which has been many years in the making. And this is a really, 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 really big deal. It's called My Truth, The Rape of Two Corys. It's the story of Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. But it's not just that. There's also people here like the former star from Young and the Restless, Christoph St. John. He died last year of heart failure. He is also in it, which is a really big deal because he talked about some of the shit that he went through with that. But the biggest deal that's coming out with this thing is these motherfuckers are naming names.
Yes. Now, I those of you who followed the very early days of the podcast, and some of the episodes that no longer exist, you know that I've actually befriended, well, I should say Mr. Feldman befriended me. He'll help me out with a personal situation I had, and I've stayed in contact with his sister. I knew about this thing 2 years ago, and I've been waiting for it ever since. Very exciting that it's finally coming out. I know he has been through just to hell and back in making this thing.
Yep, absolutely. He has been told to shut it down.
He says it's going to expose. There's going to be a lot of egg on a lot of faces. because a lot of people that are patting themselves on the back and saying, haha, take that, Harvey, are the same ones that are going to be named next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge deal. So for those looking for it, you can stream it on Monday at mytruthdoc.com. So mytruthdoc.com. It's $20 to stream it. You don't get it for free, but that will be up there. And this is a huge thing. And I actually am considering I might actually see if there's a way that I can actually stream it myself and get it.
I get it for free.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I'll talk to you about that after.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, definitely stick around for that. I've been trying very hard to see if I could get a few minutes with him on the podcast, and it's virtually impossible right now, obviously. But maybe he can eke us out 5 minutes sometime this year. That'd be very, very cool.
I would love that. It'd be amazing.
And you can follow us. Please start following us. Instagram. It's just Instagram / Eric and Gord. Twitter. It's at Eric and Gord Show. No, it's not. It's at Eric_Gord. I'm sorry. Facebook at Eric and Gord Show. Podchaser at Eric and Gord Show. Listen notes at Eric and Gord Show. Like anywhere you follow a podcast, you can follow me and Gord. Leave your reviews. Leave your ratings. They actually do mean a lot in the podcast world. And every time you leave us a rating or a review and it gets noticed, it makes our show a little bit better. And as you can tell, if you've stuck around from the beginning, we just get better and better and better. And that's thanks to you guys. So please follow us Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Send your emails. The actual email address is eric@ericandgord.world. Or Gwyneth Paltrow's vagina @gmail.com. That one takes more. It's got much more storage space.
So good.
I don't know what to say. What a hell of a way to end the year on. I'm just so fucking happy. It's ridiculous. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, like I've told you numerous times, I love the show. I love this opportunity that we've both been given. I think this is great, and I'm just happier than a pig in shit right now to be a part of it. So it's just awesome. So thank you.
Me too. So I guess there's not much else to say. That totally just, my whole opinion about everything just got fucked up. And that's very cool. Very, very cool. I like that very much. So tomorrow, Monday, March the 9th, we are welcoming Mike Simmons to the show. Mike Simmons is the founder of the Anything Goes Project. He's a writer, a speaker, an artist, and a content creator who has a passion for sharing stories that inspire, encourage, and lift people up. Gross.
This will be a fun one.
Well, if you lift us up any higher, it's just going to be blasphemous. I need someone who wants to share some shitty stories and knock people down. I'm looking forward to that one.
Take us down a peg or two. Oh, mother of Christ, yes. Looking forward to that.
It's going to be a good one. That is tomorrow night. It's going to be a little bit later start. Mike's not on until 9 p.m. Eastern time, so I'm not sure what time we can start. We can start whenever we want, basically.
Yeah. We'll just play a little bit earlier.
So just check out Facebook, ladies and gentlemen, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the usual suspects. See what time we're going live, and join us. Call in. Write in. Tell me you're out there. For the love of God, please. I need the validation.
Yeah, let them know, folks. Personally, I whatever. But I say, Let Eric know. Let us know. We want to know. We do. We want to know. Where are you? What do you think of the show? Do you like us? Do you not like us? What would you like to see different? What a topic? Your birthday? Fuck, I don't care. Tell me about your fucking period. I don't care. Whatever. Just talk to us. Let us know. We're up for the conversation.
There we have it. And as I said before, we don't need fancy guests. Anybody is more than welcome to be a guest any day of the week. So that is it for us. That was a very epic 2-hour podcast. One of our best. Great way to end the season. Thank you guys for being a part of it. Thank you, Gord. I'm just going to say, until next time, take care of each other.
Watch out for asteroids.
Oh, I just read a thing about that too. Yeah, night, everybody.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.
Please be advised that this podcast is meant for educational and informational purposes only and is in no way a replacement for legal or medical advice. The opinions contained within are solely those of the interviewers and interviewees and should be received as so. Those seeking help or advice are encouraged to obtain professional legal and medical services.